Inside the Gamecocks, The Morning Show. Presented by the Barndominium Company and Resto Pros of the Midlands. Part of the Chief Sports Network. Go Gamecocks!
He'll be fire on the mountain.
Consecutive home runs for Carolina.
It is good.
It's gone. He's in. Touchdown.
Williams with a throw to the plate.
He's going to score. It's a walk-off.
Touchdown, South Carolina.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home inside the Gamecocks The Morning Show, built by the Barndo Co. and presented by Resto Pros. There when you need them, Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. It is the first Monday of February. Welcome to the second month of the year. Here with us, Mad Dog is in. Mike will be here in just a moment. We've got John Whittle today as well. We'll get to the halfway point of the SEC men's hoop season. We'll talk about the ladies and what they achieved yesterday alongside Asia Wilson. We'll continue to preview the Gamecock baseball season as well. A thorough preview of that coming up with John here in just a minute. We've got some draft stuff pertaining to the quarterbacks in 25 versus 26. And where does LaNorris Sellers fall into all of that as well? Carolina is recruiting very well at the quarterback position, we might add, Phil, as I think everybody well knows. I bet that's going to come up today on the show with JC. But we hope you've all had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We are certainly glad to have you. And Phil, on top of all that stuff, not directly related to us here on ITG or the Gamecocks, but what has become one of the great what do you call it? One of the great scenes in sports happens later on this week in Arizona. The Waste Management Open.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Golf is full steam. They played at Pebble this weekend, but when the Waste Management, it's turned into quite a scene out there.
They need to empty the drunk tanks. That way they got plenty of room to throw some folks in there.
I know. Every year when this thing plays, you're like, you're waiting on the video, like the streaker and the guy who falls down and the beer can. You're waiting on something. There's always something now. So that's coming up this weekend, and we're certainly looking forward to that. By the way, softball begins their season on Thursday in Columbia. Ashley Chastain in her first year as the head coach. They got Virginia in town in the I think it's the Garnet and Black Invitational. It's one of the Gamecock Invitational, one of them. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that, dude. I love watching golf, especially on a Sunday afternoon. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just so.
It's relaxing. It's a good way to just kind of let it kind of ease into the week, right? It's not a bad way. Not a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I like the waste management because it's different than the other ones, right? I like that kind of, let your hair down, let the crowd be a crowd kind of deal. Dude. I mean, and it makes just for, gold social clips.
Oh yeah. It's just so different. I mean, golf is so many, it is so, there's so much etiquette in golf.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there's, on the course, there's etiquette, of course, but they want this is the only tournament where the players want the fans getting louder and louder and louder, and they egg them on, they cheer them on, some of them drink beer with them. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I'd like to go one year. I've got some friends who have gone, and they said Michael Flint's dad went out there last year. He was there last year. He said it was something. It was something. So, by the way, Rory, maybe Rory is. I know he had some personal things going on for quite some time. Maybe Rory's in line for a big year, 21 under to win the Pro-Am this weekend out at Pebble. 3.6 million, Phil.
Not a bad payday.
Yeah.
Not a bad 5 days work.
Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it. Yesterday afternoon, Asia Wilson honored Carolina wins 83-66 over Auburn. Auburn really hung in there. Carolina, you just kind of kept chipping away and chip it away and chip it away, and then they ended up winning by 17. But Auburn actually, showed up and came to play. There's a lot of emotions in the building, of course. Now, South Carolina, you retire jerseys, not numbers, but they made that crystal clear yesterday. The 22 ain't going to be worn again. Right. That number is going in the rafters. It's going to stay in the rafters, and you can't wear 22 anymore. It's South Carolina with the women. So that was really neat to see. Congratulations to Asia Wilson, a sold-out arena there to see all that stuff too. And, the Stars are out once again. Carolina wins their 70th straight at home, which is an SEC record, and really is, I don't even know how you comprehend that. I mean, it's bonkers.
I mean, it's, if you didn't have Gino up in Connecticut and Tara Vanderveer out there in Stanford before, she retired, you could be looking at one of the most dominant. I mean, we kind of are looking at one of the most dominant runs for a program in not just women's basketball, but all of sports.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think you'll touch the wooden 10 in a row, right? I don't think that's
no, I think those days are gone.
Yeah. Good. But to do any coach who can assemble a program to have consistent success to the tune of competing for championships at the highest levels of their sport in this day and age where the parity of the professional games is beginning to filter down to the college game with the transfer portal, NIL, I mean, and all the other stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, it can't be overlooked, right? I mean, what Don Staley has assembled and is now producing, like, I mean, Asia Wilson is the best player in the game right now, period.
Yeah, she's the face of it in the
Yeah, I mean,
WNBA.
and well deserved, right? I mean, she has worked her tail off and is, somebody that is, a homegrown hero here.
Mhm.
It says a lot when you got a statue out in front of a venue like that. But yeah, very well deserved, very well deserved honor for her. And just can't say enough about how much good Dawn Staley has done in not just assembling like what these super teams or whatever, but being able to get them to play so cohesively that they're able to kill it every, week in, week out.
Yeah, they just beat you in so many ways, I mean,
Yeah,
if you have an off day here, in Auburn yesterday, actually, you shot the lights out. I mean, they're 25 of 50. They were the Gaston girl was 14 of 22, and all those field goals were, within the 3-point line. She had 31 points. So I had tipped to her. Like I said, Auburn came to play, but South Carolina, they got 69 minutes off the bench yesterday from Joyce Edwards, Malaysia Fulwiley, and Tessa Johnson. I mean, they're not even starting at South Carolina.
Think about that. Like especially Edwards and Fulwiley. I mean, all of them would be starters elsewhere.
Everywhere. On every team.
On every
there isn't one team that they wouldn't start on. They started at UConn. They started at LSU. I mean, it's wild.
I know.
I don't. It's hard to comprehend it, man. I mean, Joyce Edwards is going to be the best player in the SEC. I'm calling that now.
Yeah,
I mean, she will be the best player in the SEC. I mean, it's just it is just bizarre.
For what, the 7th player on the team,
I guess.
I don't know.
But
she's getting a lot more run now that Watkins is out and has made the most of that opportunity for sure. She's fun to watch, man. I enjoy her game.
Yeah, she is, but Dawn too. Like Dawn she's done this plenty before. She will start the 5 that she feels like give her the best camaraderie on the court. Whether they're the 5 best players or not is a little bit different. Or she might not be able to start the 5 best players because 2 of the best players play the same position. So they just, I don't know. It's bizarre, but 70 in a row. And you just can't help but like look down the road and wonder, is there any opportunity at all for somebody to come in and upend that streak this year? I only see one, and that's UConn on the, what is that? February 16th.
Yeah.
What day is that? That's got to be that's a Sunday.
That's Sunday. Yeah, 2 Sundays from now.
Yeah, that's wow, what a weekend in Columbia. So you've got, and I'm having some screen issues here, but So you got opening day, you got Coach Tanner's celebration on Saturday, and then you got that on Sunday. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a big weekend. That's a big weekend upcoming.
Yeah, that is a huge weekend. All right, let's. It's 10:13. Let's hit a quick timeout. We do have a bunch of other SEC stuff to get to. John will be here in about 5 minutes anyway, so let's hit a quick timeout. We got a deep dive on Carolina baseball for those interested. We're starting to get some answers. We'll give them to you here in just a little bit. We got Mike ahead, plenty of football and basketball on the agenda today. It will be a fun Monday here on the morning show. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
Mike here for my good friend Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. Let's face it, it's been a rough go for mortgage rates the last couple of years. And now more than ever, you need someone on your side to get you the very best possible rate on a new mortgage or a refi. That's where Troy comes in. 27 years of experience working for you. Conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, rehabilitation loans, all doable with my man Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. And when I say doable, I mean the best possible rate that's out there. It's a phone call that can literally save you thousands of dollars. 803-238-0111. 803-238-0111. You can also check out the website ggmortgage.com.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170.
Set up the screen, and it goes to Brewer. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Brewer. His second of the day. Pitches it to Brewer. Turns the corner. Touchdown, number 3 of the afternoon.
Hey folks, it's Mike Morgan for Ryan Brewer Fence. That's right, you know the former Gamecock legend as a terrific college football player. Well, I know him as that too. I also know him as the guy that runs a great business, one of the best businesses in South Carolina. How do I know that? Well, for one, I'm actually a client of Ryan's. I had my home in Columbia done years ago, and his crew did an outstanding job, just as he does for everybody else. Whether you're in the market for a fence, railings, columns, or anything in between, their craftsmanship, their experience, and service second to none. Ryan Brewer Fence has over 15 years of experience with consultation and installation of residential and commercial fencing and railings. Rest assured your job will be done with an unparalleled level of expertise, and it's done on time, and they do it right the first time. Again, you're not going to do any better than Ryan Brewer. Ryan Brewer Fence. The website is ryanbrewer.net. Set up an appointment today. Tell them Mike sent you.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney Okay. In the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. Protectwithbear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth. And, we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
You're tuned into Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show. Part of the Chief Sports Network and presented by Gamecock Traditions.
Yeah, Gamecock Traditions, it's that time. Get your Carolina baseball gear now. They are fully loaded and stocked. The hats and the shirts and all the team stuff is in GamecockTraditions.com. You can order online and have it sent to your doorstep. And you, of course, can head to Gamecock Traditions in Lexington or the Village at Sandhill. And get ready to look good next weekend when Carolina baseball opens the Paul Maneri era at Founders Park, 4 o'clock on Friday, Valentine's Day, February 14th, and then on Saturday. We don't have the exact timeline of events just yet. We should have those sometime later on this week. But the Ray Tanner honoring the ceremony will be on Saturday the 15th. I can just tell you now, there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of former players that will be in town. A ton. So if you've got a hero from the past, chances are he's probably going to be around. I've talked to a lot of my buddies, and they can't wait to be in. There's going to be an event that Saturday night too that will be closed to the public, and there's going to be a tailgate before for players and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Folks who played for Coach, and that's going to be just a wild weekend. So if you're planning to be there, you're probably going to see some familiar names and faces who have achieved a lot at the University of South Carolina. While we wait on John to pop in here, Saturday night, I was going back and forth. I guess I probably could have done split screen, but I didn't, between the Carolina game and the Arkansas-Kentucky game. How about that, man?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we mentioned last Friday, I kind of went down the slate of Saturday and said there were a lot of upsets that were probably going to happen. And they did. And that was one of them. Now, that wasn't on the bingo card. I don't know many people I felt like Arkansas could go play well. They've got talented players. But I didn't think it was going to end up like that. No. And it did. I mean, Arkansas turned it on in the second half, and they ran away from the Wildcats at Rupp Arena. That was an interesting scene, and it was also neat to see some people, giving him hugs and stuff. It was a mixed bag, I guess, if you will. It was a mixed bag of boos and cheers and being whatever. But Kentucky's now 15-6, 4-4 in the league. South Carolina fell to A&M. And another close one at home. They lose by 4 points to the 13th ranked Aggies, and the Gamecocks are now 0-9 in the SEC. It ties the longest losing streak in the history of the program in SEC play. So we're going to certainly get to that here with John Whittle in just a little bit, and he's here, so we'll let him join the party now, and we'll switch over to the Diamond. As I mentioned, we'll come back to baseball, but we'll start, John, with Gamecock baseball because they're now under 2 weeks from the Paul Maneri era beginning in Columbia, South Carolina. And we were talking to Coach Lake on Friday about generally this past weekend, the scrimmages here, you start to learn a little bit more or at least reaffirms more of what you're thinking, or maybe changes what you're thinking a little bit. I know you were out there watching them play this weekend. John, give us your synopsis of what you saw.
Yeah, I thought we were going to start with the Royal Rumble, but we can start with baseball.
That's for Coach Lake. We have to hold on till Friday. Let Coach Lake get in here and give his stone cold stunners and all that stuff.
Understood. Yeah, he's definitely a good one to talk to about that. So I'll pass and defer to him. But no, I mean I thought it was a good weekend of scrimmages overall. It helps having better weather. I thought the games on Friday and Saturday were pretty well played. A pretty nice balance of good work offensively and on the mound. Defensively. Defense was okay for the most part. I mean, there were no errors yesterday, which I think is a good thing. There have been some struggles at a couple of spots, a couple of players from a defensive standpoint here, over the course of the first 7 scrimmages now. And, I guess technically everyone all the pitchers will have thrown twice this coming Tuesday. We've seen most of them twice, but there'll be a handful who go again on tomorrow, I guess it is. But, there've been several players who have played much better this preseason versus what they did in the fall. And some guys are rounding into form. And, I think we're starting to get a little bit of clarity on some things too, in terms of, like what they want to do with Ethan Petrie and what some options are at, second base, and how things are coming along at catcher. So I think it's been a pretty good couple of weeks so far, scrimmages.
All right, let's start there with so there's 2 guys, they're veterans and they're blue collar kids, Matthew Becker and Talmadge LeCroy. And when I was talking to Coach Lake about these guys on Friday, if you had this time last week, John, my initial thought was when it came to the rotation, all right, well, it's I think it's Jerzenbeck. I think McCoy, SQ, Becker's right there. Obviously, you've reported multiple times how good he was in the fall, and he was having a nice. This isn't spring, so he was having a nice preseason. And then LeCroy, I think the thing that we were kind of waiting to see with him was, is he going to take the bull by the horns or not? You don't just replace Cole Messina, but are you going to take the bull by the horns, and what type of player are you going to be back there? Not just from your reporting, my understanding and sourcing my own information here, Matthew Becker has been phenomenal, and Talmadge LeCroy has really, really, really kind of risen to the challenge. Does that mean both of them are going to have all SEC seasons or anything like that? No, it doesn't. But so far, so good for those 2 guys. And John, it's just really, you've covered Carolina baseball for a long, long time. If you don't have the veteran guys, the blue collar kids, the dirt bags going out and doing what they do, it's really hard to win in this league, even when you have superstars. So let's talk about those 2 guys first. As players and as leaders for this program, what have you seen from them? And do you think that Matthew Becker would be in the rotation next weekend if you had to pick today?
He's got to be in the rotation for me. I mean, for me, he's a Friday night starter. Jerzenbeck just, hasn't performed particularly well these first 2 weekends. I mean, he's shown flashes of being the dude that you thought, but he's given up 7 runs in 6 innings. I mean, what
is it? What are you seeing from him? What's going on?
It's been different things. He's gotten behind in some counts and walked too many guys. He gave up a home run the other day because he was behind in a count with a 3-0 count, and he threw a cookie fastball down the middle that guy had the green light on and hit out of the park, for example. Mm-hmm. So he's gotten himself into some trouble, but these guys have also faced him a little bit now too. So it helps when you face pitchers over and over again. I think that's part of it, but I'm not trying to bag on Eli too much. I mean, he's still one of the most talented pitchers, if not the most talented pitcher overall on the roster, but he hadn't pitched great right now, and Matthew Becker has. I mean, Becker's given up 1 earned run in 6 innings, and that was a home run to Ethan Petrie. So everybody gives up home runs to Ethan Petrie. He's got, I think, 5 so far this preseason. He's got like a dozen RBIs. So, I mean, he gave up a solo shot to Petrie. He hasn't really walked many guys, haven't given up many hits. His strikeout numbers have been a little bit down from what they were in the fall, but he was striking out everybody in the fall. He's been in the past mainly a 90-mile-per-hour guy with a big curveball. Has some deception with the fastball, but the fastball's ticked up just a tad. He's added a changeup, which is what he gets a lot of his swings and misses on now. Forget just the curveball; he's getting a lot of swings and misses on the changeup. So I think Matthew's in line to have a great year, and I certainly can understand where Maneri's come from with regard to. Maybe we start him on the weekend, maybe we close him, see how things go. But when that guy's been your best guy, especially when he's been here and in this program and doing it for so long for this program, I think you got to give him the reward of, not necessarily being the Friday night guy. I'm not saying he has to be that to feel rewarded, but let him go into opening weekend as an opening weekend starter. So, I think that's where he's ultimately going to be. But, I guess there's another week worth of scrimmages to see how things kind of play out. Some of the other starting pitchers haven't, or guys in that competition haven't been, lights out. Dylan Eskew's been pretty good. He's gotten out of some trouble and around some trouble, giving up a few unearned runs, but he's walked as many as he's thrown innings pitched. Jake McCoy's given up 5 earned runs in 6 innings. I mean, those are guys you're considering for the opening weekend rotation. Same with Parker Marlott. He's given up 6 in 4 innings. So, I think some of it, I think there's a lot that has gone into it. But when you look into what Becker's done, you got to love what he's done.
All those guys are throwing to Talmadge LeCroy. Tell us about Talmadge here in the preseason.
Yeah, I think he's been good. I think he's been really good, offensively and defensively. I don't think he's – he's – I won't say I don't think. I know he's not in the same conversation as Cole when it comes to, all-around great catcher. But, he's doing the job well enough. I mean, he hasn't played the spot for the last 3 years. I think he's doing a good job back there. He's done a really nice job offensively. I mean, he's hitting about 450 right now, and has a home run, maybe 2 home runs, double in there. He hadn't been striking out, which is good because he struck out a ton in the fall. And heck, Paul Maneri said, after the fall, he said, he strikes out more than I'd like, and that number's come way down. So that's a good thing for him. And I'm pleased with the way he's played. Like if he keeps playing the way he has been, the drop off from catcher last year is not going to be nearly as big as what I anticipated. And when you lose a guy like Cole, almost regardless of who you replace him with, there's going to be at least some little bit of drop off, and there's going to be this year, but it's not going to be nearly as drastic as I thought.
All right, John, let's talk about Dalton Mayshore, legacy kid. And I really like him. I asked about him last week and was told actually very similar to the Kazmar kid at short, kind of a dirtbag player. You look at him, you see baseball player, baseball intelligence, which that's not shocking at all, knowing who his family is. But I do know that I guess maybe the fall wasn't incredibly kind to him. So what's preseason been like?
Yeah, he just didn't hit in the fall, and he's wasn't dynamic defensively. I mean, he just kind of looked like a guy out there, and don't mean that disrespectfully or as disrespectfully as it may sound, but that's what he looked like in the fall. He looks a lot better this preseason, and why that is, I mean, it may just be the game. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. You have a stretch where you're not playing as well, but I thought he started to come on at the end of the fall a little bit, but he's been much better. And they put him out in left field yesterday for the first time, and he made a play out there. He typically plays right and is more comfortable at in right field. But, the left field spot is a little bit open. Blake Jackson hasn't really come out and gotten a stranglehold on that spot. And Kennedy Jones is someone who they would probably prefer to DH if they can. But, Ryan Bakes is hit really well too. And, he could DH and Kennedy Jones play left field. So they're looking at options. But Mayshaw's what he's done consistently well since he's been here is gotten the bat to the ball. He hasn't struck out much. Hadn't struck out much this preseason. He's got as many walks as he does strikeouts. I've got him down. All of the stats I give you are unofficial. So I've got him down for 7 of 19. But he's hit a lot of line drives. Hadn't gotten it out of the park yet, but he's a strong kid. He's built well. He's quick. I really like the look of him. And Kent Reichert, I got to give him props for this. He said, he just looks kind of like Brady Allen when he digs into the box. And, we kind of know what Brady looked like and how he played. And I thought that was a pretty decent comparison, right down to the jersey number 3 on his back. So, I like what Dalton's done, coming out of the fall. Like he was in the conversation just because of who they thought he was for being in the lineup. But, now he's playing like a guy who has a real chance to be in the lineup.
Okay. Elsewhere in the outfield, there's a bunch of dudes out there who can do certain things. Hall is in center, and we know that. You mentioned just a minute ago a ball that was hit out of the yard this weekend. I believe you were referencing Evan Stone, right, on that 3-0?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. How about Evan Stone? I mentioned blue collar guys who've been around. I mentioned Lee Croy, and I mentioned Becker. It probably should not have left Evan Stone out of that group either. He's fighting for time. I understand that. We know what he can do defensively. Offensively has been his question mark since he's been in a uniform. What's he looked like?
Not as good in the preseason as he was in the fall. Just to be honest, I mean he didn't have a hit the first four scrimmages. He came back and has had had a better weekend this past weekend. Had a 2-hit day that included a home run. Had another hit yesterday. He's been a little bit better, but still not real good so far this preseason. But there's still at least 4 more scrimmages left to go, maybe 5. So we'll see how that comes together. But he's played really well defensively. They put him in left field some. He's played some right field. Hadn't played any center. Or wait, no, he has played a little bit of center for the backup team. Nathan Hall is going to be the starting center fielder. So Evans competing for a corner spot, at the moment. But he's obviously done really well defensively. He made one of the plays of the preseason. I think it was the first scrimmage, either first or second scrimmage, when he went up and caught a ball at the top of the wall against the visitor bullpen. Took away at least a double from Will Tippett. But he's what you're going to get from him defensively. Really good in the fall. Needs to be a little bit better right now to earn a job. But he's in the conversation.
Specific to the outfielder, just the outfield, what is the best lineup from a defensive standpoint? What is the best lineup from an offensive standpoint? Just the outfielders.
From a defensive standpoint, I would say probably Nathan Hall in center, Evan in left, and I'd put Ethan Petrie in right. And because his arm is a real weapon, and you can keep guys from going to third base, and you can keep guys from challenging you at home. You can throw some guys out. And I know that would be probably a controversial pick, but I like having a strong arm out there in right field, especially when, he makes the plays he should, and you've got a center fielder who can cover a couple extra steps out there too. So that's what I would probably say defensively. From an offensive standpoint, if you just had to put your best bats out there, and not considering DH or anything like that, I mean, I think it's Kennedy Jones, Nathan Hall, and Ethan Petrie out there and right. But Mayshore is certainly a good defensive outfielder. Like, there's not going to be a huge drop off in arm from from where Ethan Petrie is. There'll be a drop off, but not a huge one, and he'll probably track down a couple of more than Ethan does. He's made a couple of plays over there in the corner, over there by the foul pole in right field. So if he ends up being the starter in right field, I think you're still in pretty good hands.
All right, now what's the likely opening day look as it stands today, February the 3rd?
I think you probably see Blake Jackson in left, and assuming he has a good weekend this weekend, I think you probably see Blake Jackson in left, Nathan Hall in center, and Dalton Mayshore in right, with Ethan Petrie playing first and Kennedy Jones DHing. I just have a feeling that opening day they'll probably go with some of the older guys and go from there. But there are 100 different ways they could put out this lineup on opening day.
Yeah. It's what I actually thought you would say there. It tells me that my intelligence is correct. If it matches the intelligence of John Whittle, it is correct. All right, on the infield, who's the most versatile guy on the infield?
Most versatile would probably be Will Tippett. I mean, he played shortstop at a pretty high level last year from a defensive standpoint. He played second base at a pretty high level his freshman year from a defensive standpoint. He's made a couple of nice plays over at first base here this preseason, and he can go over to third. That being said, he's had a really, really tough preseason with the glove. Ball's not going in it right now, and that certainly doesn't help him because he's struggled at the plate as well. So he's one of those guys who's kind of on the outside looking in of things right now. And coming into the preseason, coming out of the fall, he would have been in the lineup somewhere, whether it was first base, second base, wherever. But he's probably the most versatile, and Jordan Carrion's probably right behind him. Jordan can't play first base, but he's looked really good, making some plays at second base and shortstop, and he's competent over there at third base too. So, Jordan Carrion's actually, I think, pushing for some playing time right now at second base. Caden Gaskin is very hit and miss right now, both from an offensive and defensive standpoint. Gaskin had a good day yesterday offensively. The day before, he had 4 strikeouts. It's that second base spot is very much up for grabs right now. And, I think if there were a game today, I think you'd have to put Jordan Carrion there if Nolan Naraki's not healthy. But Nolan Naraki is going to factor in at that spot once he's fully healthy. And, he's not playing defense yet, but he's doing some running on the bases. He's certainly not full speed from a running standpoint, but he's doing some running on the bases, and he might be able to get there to be healthy by opening day.
Yeah, he has seemed to be, if he's 100%, he seems to be the likely option that somebody would have to take it from him based on, I guess, kind of what I'm understanding. Scooby's going to be at third. It is Scooby, right? That's what Lake said. He said it's Scooby.
Ooh.
Or do we have an issue here? Do we need to consult Riker? Someone get Ken on the phone.
I'm about 98% sure it's Scooby.
Well, that's what I thought. And then Lake went with Scooby.
Maybe it's his nickname. It would make sense.
Well, that's a good point.
But
we need to figure that out.
On the other
this
hand,
is the first
Lake
time I've
was
ever heard
I don't call
Scooby.
them nicknames. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll double check and maybe Kent's listening right now and he'll send one of us a text or I'll text him when we get off and get some clarification and let you know. But I'm pretty sure it's Scooby.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just call him KJ for the time being, just to make sure that we don't screw anything up.
Or just call him that freshman third baseman that Paul Maneri loves.
Paul Maneri does love him. The left side set, Katzmar is going to be the shortstop. Scooby is going to be the third baseman. You mentioned probably the most likely position that if you had to, maybe roll the dice on something, would probably be second. If not Petrie at first, who is it? Well, you got two different things going on, right? I mean, you mentioned.
I don't know.
I mean, where does Hollins fit into the? I just can't imagine them starting 2 true freshmen on the corners.
Yeah, well, Hollins is really good defensively. He's not hitting right now. He's got a little bit of a wrist thing, and he hasn't hit since opening day of practice. I'm not sure where he is. I know they were hopeful to get him back, this past weekend and swinging the bat some. I imagine he's at least doing a little bit of tee work or something along those lines. I've got to imagine he's at least right there. I don't know how close he is to being ready to hit. Paul Maneri in his preseason press conference before the start of practice talked about how he sort of envisioned Bo as a guy who might be ready later on in the season. He talked about how at LSU, one year he had 3 just dynamite freshmen, and one was ready opening day, one was ready about a third of the way through the season, one was ready about 2/3 of the way through the season, and he sort of sees Bo as a guy who's probably going to be ready to compete during the middle of the season sometime. So that's kind of where I see Bo, and especially with the fact that, what was holding him back a little bit from being ready right now was offensively, and, him missing all these at-bats, is probably not helpful as far as that goes for him and trying to get ready for the season. So I think that I think it's going to be Ethan, regardless of the other guys at first base. If for some reason it's not Ethan, then I'm not sure where they would go. I would think it would have been Will Tippett. But, like I said, he's really struggled offensively and struggled some defensively too. So it's hard to say, but I'm pretty sure you're going to see Petrie there on opening day.
What's Ethan's preferred position, John? I mean, is it right field? He looks very comfortable out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan's most comfortable in right field. And he told me that on the record the other day, so I don't mind divulging it. I asked him where he was from a comfort standpoint at first and third, and he said, I've been working hard at those spots, and I feel pretty good there. And I said, well, where do you feel most comfortable? He said, oh, definitely right field. So, I mean, that to me kind of screamed pretty loudly that's where he feels best. But, he's done some good things at first base. I just, when I watch these scrimmages, he doesn't always look like he knows where he's going and what he's doing on bunt defenses. And, I think that's going to take a little bit of time for him to kind of master, I guess. And I guess that makes a little bit of sense, but those are things that have to be right by the time the season gets here.
Apologies for the green screen behind me. Phil, I think I figured out what the issue is, and we'll have to address that after the program somewhere.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, I think Mike just popped in too. I mean,
there you go.
It's all working now.
Yeah, it's Monday. You just don't know on Mondays anymore. John, we know from with the staff. They have a lot of innings returning. I mean, a ton of innings returning. You could probably go back in recent years, and this is probably one of the staffs that you would be most excited about from an experience standpoint. A lot of those arms are still very young because they logged so many as freshmen. But they also added a lot of guys. They added dudes from the portal, from the ACC and the SEC, JUCO, you name it, guys. All right, so give us some off-the-radar guys, maybe the fan base is just not familiar with some of these names just yet, but they've been performing well, and we expect them to see some innings, and then what they do in those innings, I guess, will tell us what they're going to end up, what role they're going to end up having as the year goes along.
Well, older guys, the first two that come to mind for me are Jarvis Evans, a transfer from Georgia, and Brendan Sweeney, who's a JUCO transfer. Evans, I think he's a little bit on the outside looking in right now of a weekend starter spot, but he's sort of in that conversation. And if they wanted to go with guys who have been the best recently, he'd probably be one of them. He's pitched twice. He's gotten the most outs out of anybody. He's thrown 7 innings, only given up 1 earned run. He's given up 4 unearned runs. 2 of those were by his own accord, throwing a swinging bunt into right field. and allowing a couple of runs to score. But, he doesn't really walk guys. He's striking guys out. He's he struck out 7 in those 7 innings. His changeup is really good. His curveball's been better, and has been good. He's not overpowering with his fastball. He's like a 90-mile-an-hour guy. But he started a little bit at Georgia. He actually started against the Gamecocks last year, and he got absolutely roughed up. But he's been good. He missed part of the fall with some arm soreness. He came back and it was fine. He's been really good this preseason. Sweeney is I would think in pole position to be the closer. If you subtract Matthew Becker from that conversation,
big kid,
tall kid, 96-mile-an-hour fastball. Like he's got the look of the traditional closer. So he gave up a few too many hits in the fall, probably for what you would want from your closer. Maybe not runs, but hits. I mean, he had a lot of guys on base at times, and he hadn't given those up as much here recently. But he's somebody who jumps out at me. And I'll lump the 3 freshman pitchers in as a group: Ryder Guarino and Zach Russell and Cooper Parks. I think all 3 of those guys have been much better than what I thought they would be. Zach Russell's probably on the periphery of that closer conversation too. He's still trying to figure it out a little bit, and he's one of those guys who's probably going to be pitching a lot more and in a lot more high leverage spots later on in the year than maybe early, because he's didn't get moved to the mound until right near the end of fall practice. They were originally practicing him at shortstop. They were about to cut him. They were like, this dude can't play here. Let's put him on the mound, because he was a really good pitcher in high school. I thought that's where he would start out. But they started him out at shortstop, wasn't good enough. And, now he's out on the mound throwing 95. Now he's also hitting Ethan Petrie in the forearm with some pitches, and that's not going to get you very far. But fortunately, it was a breaking ball. It was an 83-mile-an-hour breaking ball and not a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. But he's hit a few guys. He's walked a few. He's given up a few hits. But man, the stuff can be electric. And once he kind of gets honed in, he's going to be really good. Cooper Parks and Ryder Guarino, both of those guys have only thrown once, and they'll pitch again tomorrow. But their stuff plays. They're going to be good, and it may not be this year because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of old guys, a lot of returning guys, a lot of JUCOs, a lot of transfers. So their time may be next year, but they're going to pitch a little bit, and I think they're going to pitch well.
They'll scrimmage again tomorrow. I'm not sure if they've announced a time for that, but
they haven't. But it's got to be around 3 or 4 o'clock, right? Like, they've got classes, so it's not going to be in the morning or first thing in the afternoon. It'll be a little bit later in the afternoon.
All right, well, PSA to Zach Russell: if you want to find yourself on the mound, don't hit the best player on the team in scrimmages. Protect him at all costs. John, we'll turn our attention to some hoops, and then we'll get you out of here in just a few minutes.
I'm gonna bring in Mike too. Jamie,
opening day. Okay, perfect. Opening day is up in 11 days at Founders Park. Again, we'll have plenty more on that next week, and maybe even some more answers for you next Monday. But Carolina Falls 76-72 on Saturday night against Texas A&M. They just kept getting to the hump. They were at the hump. All right, let's get over the hump. And kind of slide backwards. And then they were able to tighten it up a little bit at the end. I just continue to ask the same question over and over. How much more can this group take before they just almost throw in the towel? Lamont's teams generally don't do that, John, but you know what they look like, and you probably understand what they're going through more than many of us. So reaction from the ball game Saturday.
It was tough to watch because, like you said, they just kept playing from. It felt like 5 points behind the entire game. Obviously, it got up to 13, and they South Carolina would cut it down pretty quickly, but they didn't. I don't think they led after about the opening 8 or 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah,
so they were playing from behind for most of it, and it was just. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we have the same conversation every week. About this. I mean, to answer your question about, it feels like, is this team going to break? They've lost so many close ones. I mean, they got they got the midweek off. They don't play until next Saturday at Kentucky. I think we'll kind of learn something about the answer to that question here in these next in this next week. See where they are at Kentucky. As you said, it's not in Lamont's team's natures to kind of roll over, and I don't think they will. But can they get over the hump? I don't know. If you hadn't done it by now, I mean, they're going to win a game. This is not an 0-18 team. They're probably going to win a couple or 3 games, but it's hard to envision them putting together some kind of magical run right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I was listening to Derek and Casey in the pregame on Saturday, and they threw out the stat about these two teams being 15th and 16th in the league in 3-pointers made this season. And then they come out of the gates, and both of them are just firing away from long range. Carolina went through a little bit of a spurt, but they were knocking plenty down. And then old freaking Wade Taylor does, how many of y'all hit as a team? 5? Well, let me just throw up a couple more here. I mean, everything that flew out of his hand from 35 feet was, it was just bonkers. I was like, dude, this team is just cursed. They are just cursed. Everything that went up went in. It was crazy.
Yeah, watching him was like watching like a 8-year-old rec league team that has one good player and nobody else knows how to tie their shoes, and he just gets the ball and shoots it from wherever the heck he wants because he's the only good player on the team. Like some of these shots that went up, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and then he'd make more than he should have, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I get it. But I mean, to go 7 out of 10 from deep, and I mean, they don't hit 7 as a team, if I'm remembering correctly, a game. It's just kind of the way the year's gone, right?
Hey, well, for what it's worth, because last year Wade Taylor, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in College Station, but he sure loves playing in Colonial Life Arena, because when they were here 2 years ago, he was 8 of 10 from the floor, 4 of 6 from long range, and scored 20 points in that game. So if I don't know, I don't think this guy has much eligibility left. I don't know. It's the NCAA. He might have forever. But if he does, and they're on the schedule in 2 years, and for whatever reason Wade Taylor's still around, you can't let him play in the game. Something's got to happen. You got to throw water on the floor. You got to throw soap. You got to do something. Something's got to happen. I'm not trying to hurt the kid, but you got to delay. You got to delay him playing on this floor again, because he's lethal in that building for whatever reason. That was wild.
Leon Lott's a big supporter of the Gamecocks, I think. So we'll see what Sheriff Lott can come up with.
Yeah, maybe just don't let him in the building. Yeah,
but yeah, it was a tough watch. Some of these games recently have just been hard to view, just because you can watch this team play and you can see they're playing with some effort, and you can see they're playing well in some ways, but you know how it's going to end, right? Like it's ended the same way the entire time, and until they're able to pull one of these out, everyone's going to have that same feeling. But I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like you're in that ball game right at the end. And, Jacoby has a pass bounce right off his hand and go for a turnover. And Zach Davis dribbles the ball off his foot again as he's driving through the lane, trying to get to the rim, and goes for a turnover. And it's like, these are your older guys who have been playing so long and, just can't quite get it right. I mean, Jacoby Wright has hardly hit the rim in the last month on his 3-point shots. It's been so difficult to watch in so many ways.
Well, at least they don't play till Saturday in Rupp, and Calipari just proved you just go into Rupp and beat them. It's not that hard to do. So maybe that'll happen this week. All right, John.
Didn't the Gamecocks win in Rupp a couple of years ago under Lamont when they weren't very good? So who knows? Maybe this is the deal again.
Yeah.
Not, but maybe.
All right. here's your final question. The Waste Management Open is this week. The 16th reminds you of what student section?
Well, both of them like to throw bottles, so you can say South Carolina for sure.
Or LSU. Because they don't do that at Clemson. Oh, unless they're praying on the 16th, that can't be Clemson's student section, right?
Well, maybe Drew Lock will be out there to pick up a thrown bottle and take a swig from it as well.
Oh, God. It's gross.
That was hysterical. I became a Drew Lock fan that day for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I thought it was too funny.
Yeah, that's how you absorb the moment. You did a wonderful job, as you always do, John. You're gonna have a busy week. Baseball's right around the corner, and I know you're still covering some football stuff and things like that. We didn't get to any of that today, but we'll try to squeeze some in maybe next Monday. But thanks as always, brother. Have a wonderful week.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Mike was like me, having technical issues this morning, as you can see the green screen behind me.
You're having issues too?
Oh yeah. I don't know
what is your issue. Is it internet or mine?
No.
They all of a sudden Microsoft or whoever decided to do updates. So if you don't update it, then the camera doesn't work, or there's always something that doesn't work if you don't update it on their timetable, not yours.
I've been through that too.
That was a nice Monday morning surprise.
Yeah, I got lunch. No, you're good, man. You're good.
I have a note from Bill Gates.
I got to fix this myself. But you can have the whole hour to talk here. Take us to a timeout.
Thank you so much.
To the program.
Good to be here. Good to be here. We'll tackle a lot of stuff. Hey, I think there's a Gamecock that might have made some money in Mobile this past week.
Yeah, we're certainly gonna get to that here in just a moment on the morning show.
That's what we call a scintillating tease.
Yeah, like Kanye's wife.
That was more than a tease. Yeah. I needed a cigarette after I saw that. I don't even smoke.
I know, me neither. Driven by Love Chevy. We'll be right back.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Happy New Year from the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com. Gamecock owned and operated.
Think about that old ride of yours. The carpools, the road trips, the heavy hauls, date nights, and the dings and the dents and the sticky spills and cracker crumbs, and that smell that really never goes away. Do you really want to start the new year in the same old ride? Or is it time for a fresh start? Now's the time for incredible New Year's savings at Love Chevrolet on the entire lineup of award-winning vehicles. Love has more new Chevys on the lot than any other dealer in the Midlands, in the color, style, features you've been looking for. With New Year's savings and Love's famous low price guarantee, your new ride in 25 will be invigorating, exhilarating, and affordable too. South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer, I-26 at Harbison, and online at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
cathedral bells ringing down cobblestone Charleston streets. She's the morning sun rising on the horseshoe at USC. She's moonlight on black water, a John Deere down a Greer farm road, moving nice and slow. No, there ain't nothing like her. She's a southern one of a kind. Even in my dreams I still find her. She's like an old friend awaiting when I close my eyes. And how lucky I am to call her mine. No, you'll never find another like my Carolina. My Carolina. Talking about my Carolina. Talking about my Carolina. My Carolina. South Carolina. South Carolina.
Palm Casual presents the final hour of the morning show. PalmCasual.com, 4 locations in South Carolina to have the best outdoor furniture that you could possibly get. PalmCasual.com. The 70s this week. 70s. Naturally, it's going to be cooler next week with opening day right around the corner. Mike is here, and I'm here, and we're here until noon. Thanks to John Whittle. That's for those that wanted to hear more about baseball. I'm just going to say, Mike knows this, so he'll nod his head in agreement. I'm going to say this very humbly, but it's going to be honest. You can go wherever you want and think that you're going to get all the best baseball. You ain't going to get it better than on this program. You're just not. So for those that post on the message boards and you're reading Baseball American, they don't know more than we'll have here. I promise you. So hopefully you'll tune in for that with Paul Maneri's first season set to get underway. But Mike, as you mentioned, there was a Senior Bowl this weekend. Carolina had 3 players there. I don't even think that I know Kennard didn't play. I don't even think I saw TJ play, but Demetrius Knight did.
Yeah, he did. But believe it or not, that's not even who I'm talking about. Here's how the Senior Bowl has changed, and I went to a couple of them. My first job was in Columbus, Georgia, and that was not too far away from Mobile. I remember seeing Jake Plummer perform, and back then, I remember as just somebody who was a fan, like in high school, and watching and obsessed with the NFL draft. Alvin Harper had this great Senior Bowl, and that propelled him into being like the 13th overall pick to become the Robin to Michael Irvin's Batman for years and years in Dallas. And he was out of Tennessee, and he was known as a great athlete and a high jumper, but the Senior Bowl is what made him a first-round pick. The game back then was everything. Mm-hmm. Now, like so many other showcase all-star games, players opt out. The lack of intensity is it's just not the same. But the week in practice where you get all the reps in front of all the scouts, that's where a lot of guys make money. That's where a lot of guys move up, because I don't think the people watching take a lot of the game itself, stats and actions too seriously, because at times it almost looks like a Pro Bowl. Right. Where it's not max effort, everything's vanilla. But I'm here to tell you, TJ Sanders, in the week of practice, all of a sudden I started seeing him pop up on more and more first round boards. Mm-hmm. He had a play and it went viral. I think Trevor Sikkema, who's most famous for being Alyssa Lang's husband. No, I'm just kidding, Trevor.
Right.
But Trevor does a great job in covering this stuff in the NFL. He posted somewhere on social media Sanders again, and not in the game, but in the actual drills where you're given it's mano a mano, so you're given 100%. And he destroyed, I forget the guard's name for LSU, but pretty good player, and he just absolutely annihilated him. So he a lot of people were talking about Sanders after the week of practice. Forget about the game for a second. I know a lot of guys made different plays in the game itself, but I would not be surprised if Sanders winds up being the first player off the board in what should be, as we've talked about, and JC's talked about a number of times, a record-breaking year for Gamecocks in the NFL draft.
Could be. I mean, I'm still going to personally put my money on Nick Emanwori.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form.
He's interesting, Jamie, because I've seen boards that have Nick as high as 17.
Me too.
And then I've seen several boards that do not have him in the first round.
Yeah, so, this morning he's 30th from Matt Miller at ESPN.
Yeah, and
they've
who
got
also
him
does
going
a good
to Buffalo.
job.
Yeah.
Right. I read the Bucky Brooks mock last week on the show, and they did not have him in the first round. In fact, they didn't have a Gamecock at all in the first round. He had him in the second, but it all depends, and it depends on needs. Now, there's a lot of really good defensive linemen in this draft, both interior and rush outside. So a guy that might ordinarily be, say, a top 15 pick could slip to the second round because a lot of it's based on the numbers. So how many safeties are there? We all know Emanwori from a physical standpoint, not to mention a productivity standpoint last year, was and is outstanding. Then it comes down to a lot of teams. You know, we know this, like there's certain positions that have just been devalued. Running back gets all the play on that, right? Like a Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson, those guys still are too damn sexy to pass up in the first round. But you can also get a really good running back in the fifth round. Nobody drafts middle linebackers high anymore. Remember, that was the face of your defense, was the middle linebacker. That was the quarterback of your defense. So if you were a really good middle linebacker in college, well, you were going to be a high draft pick in the NFL. Well, now they're just like, no, that's not high on the list. Right. The top position, obviously, quarterback's always going to be number one. D-line for a lot of teams is number two, right there with wide receiver. So safeties don't always get selected highly because a press corner, a shutdown corner, is considered a more valuable commodity. There's fewer of those guys that can dominate the NFL level than a safety. So Nick Emanwori could slip, just like Jamie Bradford just slipped, apparently. Emanwori could slip not because of anything he did wrong in the combine or whatever workouts or whatever else. He could just slip by virtue of the fact that some teams feel like, well, he's great, but he's a safety and we can get a safety later on in the draft. So much of this comes down to position scarcity. You hear that term a lot. Those of you that are in a fantasy baseball league, it's like for years and years, you know, there's certain guys that were so good at one position, you would take them over the slightly better player because if you got like a shortstop that could hit 35 bombs, well, that's more valuable than another great outfielder or first baseman. Same thing in the NFL. They look at it as certain positions are a dime a dozen, whereas the position scarcity is so great that you overdraft, that you draft higher than you ordinarily would. So I think that plays a factor in all this too. But I think TJ Sanders actually made, whether or not he goes first round, who knows? But I think he actually made some money this week in Mobile.
Yeah, this next two and a half months is going to be as fascinating as a follow as it's been in quite some time in Columbia with their football players, because I don't know of any of the guys. I don't think any of the guys that we have that we know are in contention to be draft picks. I don't know that any of them whose stock is going to slide. I think it will all continue to improve. If it does slide, it's not going to be anything significant or anything like that. I mean, you bring O'Donnell Fortune into the mix now. He's a guy who his name is going to continue to come up. He's done this for the last 2 years. He gets forgotten about, and then you watch him play, and you're like, wow, that kid can play. These things are going to continue to happen. On the there's your background right now, the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans.
Yes.
Shifting this to the quarterbacks real quick. Something very interesting this morning. I mentioned Matt Miller in his mock draft. He's got the first 2 rounds. And again, all this stuff changes. But at number 40, the New Orleans Saints select in the second round this morning. Matt Miller has them taking Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Speaking of guys who made some money this week.
Exactly. And so really fascinating here, because in a little bit we're gonna fast forward to the 26 class and compare it to the 25 class. I don't think it's very good. But I do think, number one, Jackson Dart is being undersold when it comes to his peers in this draft. That's just a personal opinion. Number two, what the hell does that mean for Spencer Rattler? There are other reports floating around that the Saints are fully committed to Spencer Rattler in his future in New Orleans. But if they take Jackson Dart, what does that does that mean anything for the immediate future? Does it mean it's but also on the just specific to Jackson Dart, I feel like that's the starting point. Again, I mentioned all the Carolina guys that I think are going to continue to see that draft stock probably increase. He's another one. I don't know that he's around for the 40th pick.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think he's a first round pick. Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are going to be the top 2 guys. What order, where, who knows? There's a lot of guys that do this for a living that see red flags all over the place with Shadur. So some will pass on him just based on that. The Titans are sitting there at the number 1 pick. I don't think the people in Nashville believe Will Levis is the future. So there's a very good chance that they take that pick and they take one of those 2 quarterbacks. But Jackson Dart, and I've been high on Dart all year. If you look, he's like, there's a lot of guys that kind of dink and dunk their way to stats. He had the most balls that travel 20 or more yards in the air, completions and touchdowns than anybody in the SEC. And that's what NFL scouts look at. Like, I mean, they don't need you to throw it 70 yards because you hardly ever do. And they assume you can be accurate on balls that are within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. But where are the guys that have the arm talent to make those other throws? And Dart, who's also a good runner, showed that throughout the year. Now, like anybody else, they will poke and prod and find something to downgrade you. What is it with that? Well, they ran a tempo offense. You don't run a bunch of tempo in the NFL. They run a lot of shotgun. Well, yeah, you run a lot of shotgun in the NFL, but was he good under the center as well? Was he good? So that I've seen a couple of reports on that with Jackson Dart. The other intriguing guy is Jalen Milroe, who would have thought a guy his size, his hands are sub 9 inches. That's like the magic number. If your hands are less than 9, they say, well, he's got small hands for a quarterback. And on top of that, early part of the week, he was just a turnover machine, which is what he was a good part of the season last year for Alabama. I don't see Jalen Milroe, who in spite of all the physical attributes, goes in the first round. I can't see that. That's a reach if somebody does it. But again, crazier things have happened, a la Anthony Richardson. Mm-hmm. But those are some of the names that everybody was looking at in Mobile. And again, it's unfortunate that the game has become almost secondary to the week leading up to it. But I know a lot of people there covering that thing, and scouts, of course, are all over the place. And what you do in those practices can either make you or break you in a lot of ways.
Mike, I don't see Jalen Milroe in the first 2 rounds of the latest projections.
Yeah. No, I mean, he looks like just a mid-round talent at this point. He looks like a reach. Now, you'll get some people that say, well, those teams that pass up on him, remember now, not everybody's a finished product. And if I read one analogy, he could be the Jordan Love of this draft, where you just sit on the bench behind an Aaron Rodgers or whoever else for a couple of years, develop, learn, and then eventually you turn into a frontline starter. I'm not going to say elite. There's only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL who are elite. We know who those are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Mahomes, it's Allen, it's Jackson, and it's Joe Burrow. But in that next tier is Jordan Love. And Jordan Love barely saw the field his first few years in the pro. So some people will say, yeah, we'll just, with Jalen Milroe, we'll just sit back and wait. And then eventually when the mental catches up to the physical, then look out world. Some will say that, some will be like, no, dude can't throw the ball. That's not going to change. It's one of my favorite quotes is from Andy Reid, knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. And Andy Reid has always said, the one thing you can't teach a quarterback is accuracy. You're either accurate or you're not. And that's debatable. I mean, some guys are just nervous when they first see the field and all they're airmailing throws, and then all of a sudden they figure it out and they're really accurate. You never know. But that's one sentiment for some people. Like, you either throw a pretty ball and can fit it in the tight spaces, or you can't. You don't just all of a sudden develop that in your third year in the pros, what have you. Just to say one thing about Spencer Rattler, since you mentioned him, I think that's going to be a great question, Jamie, is to whether or not the Saints are all in on him. It's kind of mixed reviews.
Right.
I mean, look, he was good enough to start a number of games in New Orleans. They gave him the opportunity. I don't think it was a really fair shake because he's not playing with a bunch of talent in New Orleans. That was a franchise that clearly was ready to fire their coach, was ready to just get the season over with because they were going nowhere. But by the time Spencer got out there, he's playing with chopped liver. I'd like to see him with a better opportunity, with a fresh slate, new coaching staff, better talent to throw the ball to and to hand it off to, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes the NFL is not fair. They might just judge him on a couple of bad games and say, he's a backup. Let's get somebody else.
That's a good point. He was the quarterback before LaNorris Sellers. If LaNorris Sellers was in this draft, where would he go? We'll talk about that when we return from the break. And then that 26 quarterback class, when you look at it compared to this 25 class that's coming out this year, the compare and contrast a little bit. It's rather interesting when you start hearing and thinking about some of the names that will have a chance to head off to the NFL. So we'll get into that when we return. And also, we're pretty much halfway through the midpoint of the SEC men's hoops season. I want to throw some questions at Mike and see what his responses are to that. But first, Mike, take us to a break.
Yeah, how about our good friends over at D's Wings? If you're thinking about lunch today and if you're anywhere near the Midlands, check out D's Wings. Billy and his staff are terrific. That's a key point, too. They have a staff that's actually friendly and they like working there. Sometimes you go to a good restaurant, just a bunch of miserable people working. The hostess is like, when do I get off my shift? The wait staff is like, what, you want another drink? What do I look like? A machine, a Coke machine? Come on, fill up your own glass. They don't roll that way at D's. That's not the way they do it. They also have great food, of course, and it's Monday, so great specials on wings, 75-cent wings, 4 o'clock until close today. It's D's Wings, West Columbia, not too far from Founders Park, and always a great place to go if you're going to a Gamecock baseball game, either before or after.
We will hit a timeout. We'll be right back on the morning show.
There's nothing like Saturday in South Carolina. However you enjoy Gamecock football, Gamecock Traditions has a long-standing legacy of being a part of your game day. From tailgates to touchdowns, Gamecock Traditions has what you need and want with our beloved Block C logo. Get into Gamecock Traditions in Lexington or the Village at Sand Hill, or visit GamecockTraditions.com and have it shipped to your doorstep. We look forward to taking care of your family. Go Gamecocks.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com. Man, that's good.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
It is 11:24. We're powered by our buddies at Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com. My apologies for the green screen behind me. We're small technical issues that will be fixed in no time. No time. Electric
I kind
Bikes
of like the
Charleston.
green screen. I think green's a good color on you.
Beautiful color. Yeah, no, so people can see how things work behind the scenes sometimes. You can see my photo up here with John Party, and yeah, it's on
Okay.
down the road here. All right, so the class this year is as weak as it's been, to just be blunt. Next year, though, seems to have a little bit more promise. When you look at NFLDraftBuzz.com is a neat website.
It is.
It's a very neat website. And on the 13th of January, they updated their 26 quarterback class, and they've got Arch Manning at number one overall. Nico Iamaleava at number 4 overall. The overall, by the way, is an average overall ranking of multiple ranking services out there. And then the third quarterback on the board is a kid named LaNorris Sellers, and he is the 25th average overall ranking. Behind Sellers is a guy who falls over when you push him, Garrett Nussmeier. Jelon Daniels, the quarterback at Kansas, at number 5. Drew Allar at 6. Sam Levitt at 7. Jackson Arnold at 8. Miller Moss at 9. And Carson Beck at 10. Cade Klubnik, Connor Wegman. That's the 12. Okay. How about this? Let's start with something a little bit far-fetched and fun. If LaNorris Sellers, all right, let's go all three, the top three there. Manning, Iamaleava, Sellers. If those three were eligible for the draft this year in 25, where do you think those guys would land based on current production, what they've done thus far in college, which quite frankly isn't much between the three of them if you actually add it up, but then also trajectory, like what they would be projected to do at the next level?
So you're saying if they were in this draft,
yes,
with Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, well, they'd clearly be behind those two. Although Arch, the love affair for Arch, I shouldn't say that quickly. If you would just go on upside, somebody might go Arch. But if you're just going on production, as you mentioned, they haven't done enough to be in the same category as those three guys, really, if you included Jackson Dart. So I mean, I would, if I was the agent for any of those three and they were draft eligible and they were considering going, I would say no, you need another year.
Okay,
you're doing a fiscally irresponsible thing, leaving now when you're not nearly going to get top dollar for your talents. If you have another year to improve on all these things, well, now you can break bank and be a top 10 pick and get legit money. None of those guys this year would have gotten that.
Yeah, and see where you're coming at that answer from draft analyst mode. What is best for the player? a lot of people won't think about it that way. A lot of people are just thinking about it based on pure talent and then projectability, right? Like if you, to be quite frank, of those three, we've seen all of them play, and this is going to come off as very, very homerish. But if you said today, okay, well, you can have one of those three, I'm going to personally take LaNorris Sellers, but I've also watched him play much more football than I've watched the other two guys play, number one. Number two, I like the fact that he can do two different things. He can beat you in a lot of different ways, but he's got some things to work on. They all have things to work on, clearly. And you're 100%, I'm with you. If they were eligible, I'd be like, no, why don't you stay? You'll make more money by staying. But if they were in this class, and that's who you had to pick from, my gut tells me that of those that are available in this year's draft class at the quarterback position, Sanders, Ward, they're going to be the first two gone. But then you got Ewers, Beck, Milroe, Gabriel. Dart is going to continue to move up. I think Dart would go ahead of them. I'm not so sure any of the other guys in this class. Oh, Beck's not in it, but any of the other guys in this group would go ahead of LaNorris Sellers or Arch Manning. I wouldn't say that for Iamaleava, but I think those two guys will go ahead of all the others.
Yeah, I mean, Nico, I was a little surprised because I also look at that site and I saw this list. I guess it was yesterday, and I saw Nico, and I'm like, man, tape was not good to Nico last year. Tape was not good, and they look at a lot of tape. So, yeah. I mean, I'll be very curious to see. All three of them need to make strides. Okay, they just do, for what the NFL looks for in particular. You know, they all three can improve on things in the passing game. That's without question.
Just out of curiosity, so LaNorris Sellers clocked at a 4.6240. Okay, 4.6240. LaNorris Sellers, though, also we have seen him become a magician when it comes to avoiding sacks and all the things, right?
Yeah.
So two different conversations there, but strictly based on the 40 time, I did not realize Arch Manning also ran a 4.6240. Did you?
I knew it was good because that was part of the hype on Arch, and that don't confuse him with Eli, don't confuse him with Peyton. Like, Arch is a true athlete playing quarterback, so I knew that he had the reputation coming out of high school, not whether or not I would have guessed 4.6. But here's the thing. The 40 time is I mean, LaNorris is clearly a better runner than those two. I don't care if he runs a 4.8 at the combine. If you're trying to tackle LaNorris Sellers, if you're a defensive end and you've got him in the crosshairs, I would much rather, as a defensive end, try to bring Arch Manning and Nico to the ground than LaNorris. Because LaNorris, it's not just the 40 time. He's got wiggle. He's got quick twitch. I mean, he looks a little bit like Lamar when it comes to escapability. So I think all the scouts will see that. They'll look at the 4.6 and go, yeah, he 4.6, but he in terms of getting out of the pocket and being a nightmare to tackle in the open field, he's better than a 4.6. Wow. That's not where LaNorris' running is already elite. To use a baseball draft analogy, Jamie, I know you'll appreciate this. He's plus, okay, which is the highest ranking you can get, right?
Right.
Talk about a guy's speed or his hitting, his power. There's regular, there's plus, and there's plus, which is elite of elite. That's LaNorris. Where LaNorris is going to either make money or not make money is based on his throwing. 100%.
Right.
100%. You know, I was reading a thing on top transfer wide receivers in the SEC today, but from Connor O'Gara. And there's a lot of really good ones. He listed 10. None of those are going to South Carolina. And that's not to say South Carolina doesn't have talent at the position. We went over this last week as well. I just hope somebody emerges as like just a stud to help LaNorris out, because I think he's going to need some help. You know, I think he's good at, like all quarterbacks, you need a guy that is going to win those 50-50 balls. As we've said before, like with Alshon Jeffrey, it was never a 50-50 ball. It was like a 90-10. If you threw it in his vicinity, he was coming away with it. what a luxury that is for a quarterback to do, where you can throw it to a guy who's kind of covered and he's still going to adjust and make the play. I don't know if that guy exists this year. Hopefully one will emerge, but that would be awfully helpful. But yeah, I mean, so like you mentioned the site. I did this last week with somebody. Who was I talking about? With Kennard. Because I'm sure for a lot of people that aren't draft nicks, like how could that dude not be a first rounder?
Right.
And so much of it just comes down simply to 40 time. That they're really big on that for rush ends, more so with quarterbacks. But you look at tape and you're like, well, the guy beat everybody he faced like a drum in the SEC. How can he not be a first-round pick? But chances are he's not going to be. So if you read this, strengths on LaNorris: good zip and ball placement on the quick slant.
Yep.
Possesses a nice combination of size, athleticism, arm strength. Sells ball fakes effectively. Effortless thrower with very good arm strength to make passes downfield.
Yeah.
Most of his time, he is at ease mentally in the pocket. He's willing to stand in and absorb hits while making a throw. Has plus arm strength. And from a physical standpoint, a prototypical modern quarterback, his arm strength is very good, with a fairly quick delivery and the velocity and accuracy to make window throws at intermediate levels. Now, the weaknesses. Sellers often plays out of control. His mechanics are sloppy, particularly his footwork, and his decision-making is suspect. Too often fails to give receivers a chance to make play after the catch. High completion percentage padded by many quick screens. Sellers often holds the ball too long. While Sellers keeps his eyes up while moving, his mechanics get increasingly sloppy once he's pushed off his spot. It doesn't mention the fumbles on there, by the way, which makes me wonder how much tape did they see. But that's like, I could easily go to Arch Manning and there's going to be critiques. It's like you can't be overly sensitive when you start breaking these guys down in terms of the way the NFL looks at it. They are going to poke holes in everybody. Josh Allen had them. Patrick Mahomes had them. Joe Burrow had them. Like, nobody just got a perfect score in terms of evaluating them.
Yeah. So because I've got the same thing pulled up where they said he often plays out of control. His mechanics are sloppy. You almost wonder if that is referencing some of the loose ball stuff that happened to him this year a little bit. But number two, I think first of all, whether anybody agrees or disagrees with anything that is written about LaNorris Sellers when it comes to his weaknesses is really irrelevant. Like, that's the way that these things here are the things that guys like Mike Shula are focusing on, because he understands it from an NFL standpoint. He was in this is what he did. He was a part of the draft process. He was a part of finding a quarterback. He was a part of developing quarterbacks at the NFL level. I mean, you mentioned Josh Allen just a little bit ago, obviously Cam Newton and so many others that he's worked with. He's worked with so many different quarterbacks who have so many different strengths and so many different weaknesses. And not only is he able to identify them himself, but from a draft standpoint, he's able to speak to those who will communicate with Mike Shula. Hey, look, this is what they're saying that you need to work on. Now, does all of that mean that is the only focus? I mean, clearly the focus for LaNorris Sellers is how do they help the Gamecocks win football games.
Yeah.
That's the main focus. But also, like, they do intertwine. Like, if these things are good, clearly that's going to help you win games. Sometimes you might have to let your guard down. You might have to be a little sloppy just to make a play or two. That's understandable. But overall, as a prospect and as a player, if those are the things, if that's the feedback on you, you have a coach that is able to relay the message in a way that makes sense. Hey, look, I've been there. I know what they're saying. I can specifically go to this play in the third quarter of this game, and that is what they're talking about. And
100%.
What I mean, that is invaluable, man, to LaNorris Sellers.
No, it is. And I'll say this too. Doing the Carolina Panther preseason games, I did it for 5 years. So for basically, I would go to mini camp every year in April, and then I would just basically camp out in Spartanburg for about a month. And for 4 of those 5 years was Cam Newton. And Mike Shula, of course, was there for much of that as well. Cam Newton physically was gifted with an amazing skill set, but nobody ever accused Cam Newton of having the hardest work ethic or the maturity. Like, I think Cam could have been so much better. I know, like, Cam was obviously good, but he could have been a lot better. I know people close to that organization, both back then and still today, that'll tell you the exact same thing.
Mhm.
That's not going to be an issue with LaNorris Sellers in terms of work ethic, attitude, maturity.
No.
He has all those intangibles. Like, he'll go into a room. I can tell you right now, the Panthers were hoping Andrew Luck did not go back for his senior year at Stanford because they were going to take Andrew Luck over Cam. That was going to be the pick. There were a lot of questions about Cam. Cam didn't exactly light up the interview room. LaNorris Sellers would. That's the difference. That's the difference. But Cam coming out of Auburn, even though it was only 1 year in the SEC, it's one of the best years any SEC quarterback's ever had.
Might be the best, honestly.
It's right up there. I mean, it's him, it's Manziel, it's Burrow, it's Tebow. Like, those are the ones that just, they're almost, go back and look at the numbers, and it's like, oh my.
Yeah.
They did that in the SEC?
Yeah.
LaNorris has a ways to go before he gets to where he's able to perform like Cam Newton did in 2010 at Auburn, or Joe Burrow did in 2019 at LSU. Doesn't mean he can't get there, but like Cam had already played behind Tebow at Florida, under Urban at Florida in Gainesville, went to the Blinn Junior College Buccaneers for 2 years, lit it up there. And then he was like a finished product his final year at Auburn. Like, it was like, oh man, he just could do it all. That's what you're hoping LaNorris Sellers can turn into. He's already more shifty than Cam could ever be. Cam was just a battering ram running the ball.
Yep.
He wasn't the most, like, Andrew Luck had a better 40 time, if you want to go back to that. But he was a beast. But he wasn't what I would call the most shifty guy in the world. LaNorris is different. LaNorris is more like Lamar Jackson when it comes to that. LaNorris is just, there's nobody in college football next year at the quarterback spot that can move like LaNorris Sellers. That's undoubtable. But then what the scouts are going to say, yeah, we already know that. We've seen enough tape on that. Now show me you can be accurate as a passer. Show me you can make those tight throws. Show me at the end of the game, with an open receiver, you're not going to miss him. You're not going to throw a dirt ball. Like, that's what they're going to want to see and say, okay, now he's first round ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly think it's in there. And if it is in there, then he's going to make a lot of money. I know Gamecock fans would love to see him for 2 more years, but obviously if he improves the way he's capable of improving, it's going to be really hard to convince him to stay for another year. Because if you got a first round grade as a quarterback, 9 times out of 10, you're gone.
Right.
You're not.
Exactly. And it's not like, back in the middle of the season, a lot of the comps, because LaNorris was just getting started as a starting quarterback. I mean, obviously he had started since game 1, but had the injury and then started playing a little bit better. And so you naturally, you start getting compared to your peers, and who does he remind you of, whatever. And do you remember in October when you would have those conversations, or others would have those conversations, you just listened in, you would hear some of the Jalen Milroe stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different scenario here, where I think Jalen Milroe had there at the time, it seemed like Jalen Milroe was probably going to be a first round pick.
Yeah, that was a compliment at the time.
Yeah.
Anybody that watched Jalen Milroe against Georgia, who's going to have like a half a dozen high defensive draft picks in this draft, Jalen Milroe put on an absolute display.
Right.
He would have been your Heisman winner if you voted the Monday after that game.
I know.
Boom. He's the guy. He was unreal. And so, like, from a running the ball standpoint, he's got the similar traits as LaNorris does. I mean, he's freaky good running the ball, but for whatever reason, he got worse and worse as a passer down the stretch. A lot of people are blaming Kalen DeBoer now, and if Nick Saban were there, Milroe would have been developed better, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? I mean, who knows? But at the time, you would have loved to have been compared to Jalen Milroe.
Right.
He was on top of the damn world for a few weeks there, and it looked like he was only going to get better, and then downward spiral.
Totally. In two different scenarios where LaNorris Sellers, if he is fringe first rounder, he will probably continue to move up draft boards. Jalen Milroe is falling off the face of the earth when it comes to this right now. By the way, real quick here, I know we got to go to hit a timeout. We'll come back and we'll finish with some hoops. But really big, really interesting news, huge news, but also interesting news. It just kind of eased its way on out there over the weekend. The fact that Chip Kelly is now the offensive coordinator in Vegas. They have the number 6 pick in the draft this year. It'd be fascinating to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
If he wants
they need a quarterback.
Yeah. And you got Chip Kelly. So
gonna be fascinating. If you don't have a quarterback in that league, you are toast. You just are. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is good. Not great, but he's good. He's good enough. And then you surround him with the best running back in the game, a great defense. I actually think Philadelphia's got a chance of winning this game. Is that crazy? Am I nuts?
No.
Am I completely bonkers?
No. Well, shoot, it's a 1.5 point spread.
It's a 1.5 point spread
on Friday.
But like nobody wants to pick against Mahomes and Reed, and I don't blame them. If it's a close game, they're going to win it, right? Mm-hmm. Like if it's a one possession game and they've got the ball down the stretch, I'm not betting against them. But I don't know. I think Philadelphia. I think they've got a shot.
There's some Ohio State type offensive mojo going on with the Eagles right now, like kind of hitting their stride. Not that they were a bad offense, they weren't. But it seems like in the playoffs, they've just kind of nudged it up a significant notch.
Nudged it up. Hey, Ryan Brewer will nudge it up for you when it comes to a great fence, railing, column, elite craftsmanship, experience, service, second to none. You can have him work for you, not just in Columbia, anywhere in the state of South Carolina, really. They do business with people all over, including your neck of the woods, Jamie. A lot of business over there in the Charleston area.
A lot now.
Over 15 years of experience. Rest assured your job will be done with an unparalleled level of expertise. That's the difference with Ryan Brewer. Check him out. You can get a free quote online even at ryanbrewer.net.
It is 11:45. We'll hit on some hoops. The midpoint has hit the SEC season. Ask Mike. He's been in all the gyms over the last few weeks. Get some final thoughts on that, and we'll send you to the show coming up at noon.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com, man, that's good.
Fans, Club Chief has arrived. Become a Big Chief Club member or a Big Chief Club Golden Gear member for exclusive access to our Nana's Porch chat box on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Plus, you'll get access to our VIP tailgates, prize drawings, merch, and much more. A portion of your monthly membership goes to the Garnet Trust, supporting NIL at the University of South Carolina. Pull up your Chief Sports app and join on the home page. Thank you so much for being a member of Club Chief, and we look forward to meeting many of you very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Gamecocks The Morning Show. Part of the Chief Sports Network.
Someday, lady, you'll accompany me where the rivers meet the sound and sea. Feel it in my soul, it's meant to be. Oh, someday, lady, you'll accompany me. Someday, lady, you'll accompany me. You will accompany me.
Highs in the 70s return this week, this beautiful state. Welcome back. Tony Pope, State Farm, TonyPope.com. All your insurance needs here in South Carolina and in the fake peach state, Georgia. TonyPope.com, one of the great Gamecocks around. What a great guy. Tony's the man. Such an awesome dude. Supports all the high schools and stuff like that too, but supports you. And in the insurance world, sometimes it's hard to find somebody that truly does, but they do. TonyPope.com. Tony Pope State Farm. It was a wild weekend. We mentioned Friday. I gave you all the upset possibilities this weekend, and almost every one of them happened. Kansas State upended Iowa State. Florida and Tennessee. Tennessee was waxed in the swamp a little while back, not that long ago, maybe 10 days ago.
The swamp?
Or at the O'Connell Center, the exact.
That would be cool if they played a basketball game in the swamp.
Yeah, it could be.
Play one at Williams-Brice, just make that a new. They've played games on aircraft carriers for crying out loud. Why not?
Yeah, they used to play them here, and then the floor got too slick. I bet you could probably sell out the women's. They sell them all out at CLA. Tennessee returned the favor to Florida this weekend, though. They held the Gators to 44 points. That was ooh. Texas Tech went into Houston and took care of them in overtime. Mentioned Michigan State would be in trouble out in LA, and they were. Southern Cal beat them 70-64. UConn over Marquette. Baylor upset Kansas this weekend. Arkansas upset Kentucky this weekend. South Carolina upset. Oh, no, they didn't. South Carolina got beat by A&M. Missouri went to Starkville, and they won. Thumped them. I mean, thumped them. Like 27-point thumping. Which was pretty bizarre. Louisville at Georgia Tech this weekend. They went down. Oklahoma beat 24th ranked Vanderbilt this weekend. Mike, so now we're halfway through, and just speaking specifically here on the SEC, is it record aside? You got Missouri at 6-2, A&M at 6-3, Florida is sitting there at 5-3. Auburn, of course, is undefeated. Auburn took care of business at Ole Miss this weekend. That was a pretty good game for a while. And, of course, Alabama, they're going to play on, I think it's February 15th at 4 o'clock, if memory serves me correctly, Auburn and Alabama.
They got 2 meetings coming up.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Right.
I think it's in Tuscaloosa. I can't remember.
I can't tell you off the top of my head. But
is it crystal clear that those are the 2 best teams in the SEC?
To me, yes. And if you want to expand it, to me, Auburn, Alabama, and Duke are the 3 best teams in America.
So who's the best player in America? Flag, Broom?
Cooper Flag.
Okay.
He's ridiculous. He just does everything. Like people tried to hate on him early. He was like 17 years old, and he made a couple of turnovers late in the game in November.
Mm-hmm.
So the haters came out, but no, he's one of one. He'll be the number 1 pick in the draft. I've seen guys number 1 pick in the draft that, whether it's Ben Simmons or Ant Edwards, they don't make winning plays and do the things to actually win games. They just look at it like college basketball is a way station for 1 year that they have to do before they go and play games for money. Cooper Flag's out there trying to win a national championship, and he does everything possible. It's like every game. It's like, he leads his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks right now. That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, especially at Duke.
Yeah.
That's
pretty hard to do. Now, I will say this. I can't remember a year where the ACC was this bad in basketball.
All right. So does anybody know who? I know you know. Everybody out there, everybody realize who's second right now
Yeah.
behind Duke? Yeah, it's a team in the upstate.
Which ordinarily would have helped Carolina.
Yeah.
If you were in the bubble, that would have been a very valuable win, but obviously not this year.
Keep in mind now they play this week. They've got Duke coming to town this week, this Saturday, 6:00 on ESPN, Clemson and Duke, which is going to be quite unique. I can't believe Pat Kelsey, by the way, has Louisville at 9-2, 16-6 overall after all they've been through this year with their personnel and all that stuff. And
he's done a good job.
All right. So if the season ended today or this week, would the SEC still be getting 13 teams in?
I just had Texas, and they were a quote unquote bubble team. They look pretty damn good. As we mentioned before, like not all 4 or 5-star kids are built the same, right? I mean, they have a freshman who I guess he was ranked higher than Cam Scott by I don't know how many numbers on the 24/7 spot or whatever the case may be, but Trey Johnson is just different. Like that's what an NBA lottery pick looks like. He's 6'6", and there's not a shot he can't hit on the floor, and he can hit it with anybody guarding him. He can hit contested shots, which you need to in the NBA. And then they picked up some key players in the portal. So if that's like number 12 or 13, they're getting in. So then it comes down to what? Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, A&M, Kentucky. These are locks.
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia's going to be potentially a bubble team. They've hit a tough patch here. Oklahoma, a bubble team. They just got a big win.
Yeah, well, you know who else just got a big win, and did that propel them into the conversation? That's the Arkansas Razorbacks.
They need more.
No doubt.
They 2-6 isn't going to cut it. They need more, but yeah, I mean that was certainly like you watch that game. They have the talent. This is where Cal, and I know Cal certainly has a right to do a victory lap. They came to play and they beat Kentucky down in Rupp Arena. I'm not sure how many people saw that coming, but
not many.
A deeper dive suggests, well, where the hell has this been? You guys should have been better than this all year long. You should have been playing like that all year long, and then you wouldn't be looking at the NIT. You'd be an NCAA team. You'd be a 4 seed, but it hadn't been there. So, but yeah, they're going to have a hot second half, which they're more than capable of having. To your point, like they could play themselves in, but they got work to do.
Yeah, so many. I mean, every team in the league has so many opportunities, obviously, to prove themselves. I'm a believer in the fact that Arkansas, like, they got to go to Texas tomorrow, Wednesday. They win that game, they will be sitting there at 3-6, and then guess who comes to town? The Alabama Crimson Tide. So you talk about opportunity after opportunity.
Oh, yeah. No, they're there. That's the beauty of playing in the league this year. You can build a hell of a resume with all these quad 1 games. The bad thing is it can be a nightmare season, which is what Carolina's going through now. And again, playing good enough to win at home. Not surprisingly, they've done it all year, but all year long they've come up short of the mark. This is somebody hit me up and asked me about the Darren Horn. Is this like the Darren Horn? No, it's nothing like that. The Darren Horn demise, kids actually just quit. I mean, they didn't want to play for Darren Horn. It was garbage basketball, no discipline. It was like watching the A court at the Y, just chucking up bad shots and just going out there like nobody cares and getting thumped by 25 points to a mediocre SEC team. This is nothing like that at all. That what Lamont Paris is going through is that he's trying to win in the toughest league in college basketball without an SEC caliber backcourt, but they still are well coached and they fight and they play hard and they play just close enough to lose at home in a close game. But it's nothing like Darren Horn.
This is once again this is being proven that this is like the days that we were used to. They're so far gone. You can flip the script in 1 year right now.
Yeah, and with the portal, absolutely, Jamie. Like I
Look
I
at
get
Missouri.
it. Great example. Now, how did Missouri do it? Their top recruits, and they had a good recruiting class. You know what they do during the game? They sit on the end of the bench and they watch for 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see the floor. Their top recruit doesn't play. I don't know if they're going to redshirt him or what, but he just sits. I've had Missouri 2 or 3 times already. He does not see the floor. They're winning on the portal.
Right.
They got the right guys in the portal. And I can tell you what, I've talked to a lot of people around the league the last couple of weeks and have gotten figures on NIL. And I don't think I'm breaking any news here. If you're South Carolina and you want to be a consistent NCAA tournament contender in this league right now, the NIL is going to have to go up.
I've heard it needs to double.
I would not argue that figure, and I'm not going to give exact amounts, but I have a pretty good idea what it is. I'm sure you do too. And I have a very good idea of what other teams in this league that are winning a bunch of games, what they're spending, and it's not apples to apples. It's apples to avocados. And Lamont is a good enough coach, but you have to give him the players. And the players, it's not that they don't want to come to South Carolina. It's what are you offering? What is the financial package? That's where we are in recruiting. So you can immediately, to your initial point, and it's a great one, you can immediately turn it around with one portal class combined with some of the players that will be coming back. Murray Boyles is all likelihood gone.
Yeah.
But there'll be some kids that'll be back next year that you can certainly build around, but they're going to need to have a successful portal if they're going to avoid being in the bottom third of the league again.
Weather the storm, weather the storm, weather the storm.
Weather it. Hey, it sucks, but it can be fixed. It can be remedied. See what baseball has to offer. I know the preseason polls are not friendly, but they mean nothing.
That's a good point.
They mean very little.
Well, we mean something, and y'all all mean something to us.
Something. You guys mean everything to us.
Hope everybody will be back tomorrow at 10. The show is about to start. Mike will give you the final word.
Final word belongs to Troy Branham. Really, he wants to help you out with your mortgage needs. Give him a phone call at 803-238-0111. Helping people in the Palmetto State for over 30 years. Big Gamecock fan, too. Troy Branham, Golden Gate Mortgage. Again, 803-238-0111. ggmortgage.com is the website.
Thanks to John and the Golden Tones and all of you, JC and Phil. They're on now. Switch over, and we'll switch back tomorrow at 10 for us on Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show built by the Barn Dough Co.